Sport Clips Haircuts Help a Hero program funds scholarships for U.S. veterans who are pursuing a college degree or vocational certification. Visit your nearest Sport Clips to learn more and donate now through November 11th.
All right, we are back and better than ever. Just a touch winded. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. For those of you wondering, why would we be a little bit out of breath? And why is the studio taking a second to come back into place? We just did the plank for player, which we were thrilled and honored to do.
See, here's the difference as we bring Trevor Matich into this, because I'm going to bring him into this, former offensive lineman at BYU and the NFL for a bunch of years. We planked for 82 seconds, right. And then we had time left in the segment, and you and Bickler and Hembo decided you wanted to do push-ups. And me and Paul, who, again, does the sound here, he was out there planking as well. We didn't. And they asked, why aren't you doing push-ups? I said, I was asked to plank for 82 seconds. I'm not doing any more than that. And Trevor, it's reminiscent of when for testing before a season, you have to do 8 gassers, which was the width of the field, there, back. You have to do it in 40 seconds, or whatever the time was, there, back in 40. And I would hit the line at 40. We all would as a defensive line.
Right.
And every now and then the coach would be like, you guys could be faster than that. We're like, yes, but you said 40 seconds and we have to do 8 of these. Why would I do one of them in 30 seconds? I'm going to do every one of them in 40 seconds because that's what I was asked to do.
We are coachable.
Yes.
If you tell us to block that guy, what do? We block that guy, not that guy and his girlfriend.
Right.
We block that guy. But by the way, I was amazed at you guys planking for 82 seconds over there. But you do need to know that section of the floor has just quit its job.
Yeah.
I would think. And I've got Purell working like crazy.
First thing Greeny asked, because he put his hands on the floor, is like, do we have some Purell?
The floor felt a little bad and a little cold and a little not so nice. But
how many people would actually know what the floor in this room feels like? Ever.
There's 5 of us
now. You do. Yeah.
True. All right, let's get down to business here. Avi, we'll get back to our coverage of the World Series again. Game 7 is tonight, and you can't ask for any more than this series has already given us, and hopefully there are a few thrills left in store, and, of course, the action will be here tonight on ESPN Radio. But a lot of the conversation today, Trevor, comes from last night's first reveal of forgetting about the rankings. I think it's the first look we get into the mindset of the members of this committee, right? There's always little peculiarities and little changes and all of that. So with that thought in mind, what did you think was the most important stuff that came out of last night?
The most important stuff is that it appears, based on this ranking, that the committee has abandoned its usual cuisine of shrimp and croissants, and they've gone to burgers and brats.
Okay.
And this is solid. I mean, it's really solid. There are a few things you could quibble with in here. But when it comes to the most important thing, the top 6 or 7, they're right. And it was a good combination of eye test and resume. I fear that we have gotten so caught up in this new language of resume that we lose sight of what actually happens on the football field. The guys that are sweating and getting their teeth knocked out. The guys that are not as good an athlete that beat the better guy. Right? We lose sight of that because we're so deep into the spreadsheet. But Alabama, I think, is the best team in the country. Do you guys agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
But through no fault of their own, they have not beaten a team. They haven't played a team that's currently ranked. So they're not ranked number 1 right now. Georgia is, because Georgia is pretty close to Alabama, but they've beaten 2 ranked teams, and I think that was the right thing for the committee to do.
As far as when a team beats another, we saw how it helped Ohio State last year, and Oklahoma beat Ohio State this year, and they show up in the rankings ahead of them right now. Do you think it's fair if it's used against you if you lose late as opposed to losing early?
I think it depends. That's a great question, Mike. It depends on the nature of the loss. For example, Clemson goes to Syracuse and they lose, but their quarterback was gimpy early in the game, and then before the first half ended, he ended up getting knocked completely out of the game. Oklahoma State loses to TCU, but their right guard and right tackle were injured, and TCU took advantage of that because the depth wasn't there. So if you lose because of injury, I think it should be seen differently than if you lose early in the season or late in the season, because the committee looks at them as data points. And the thing is, you're on the field playing the game. If you're not good early in the season, but you're better late, if you lose games early in the season, somebody else was better than you early in the season, and that should not be erased, because those guys that beat you early in the season, they competed too, and they prevailed.
Mike, we've got Trevor Matich in our studio here looking back at what we saw last night. I am interested in your take on Clemson, because I get that Clemson, and you just talked about the injury. I'm not 100% sure I agree with you on discounting games where there was injury, because injury is such a big part of football, and depth becomes such a big part of it then as well. But the one thing Clemson has working against them is they have the worst loss, with no disrespect to Dino Babers and all of that. Oklahoma's loss is much better, especially with Iowa State winning again, and Ohio State's loss is much better. So were you at all surprised that Clemson is ahead of both of those teams?
No, because I see the injury thing differently. But you make a great point that injuries do play a part. How do you overcome those injuries? And the quarterback for Clemson, Kelly Bryant, didn't play defense, did he? And the defense barely put a speed bump in front of quarterback Eric Dungey in that Syracuse offense. So I get that. I think the biggest reason is that they've been very, very good otherwise. And they've got 2 wins and convincing wins over ranked teams, 13 Virginia Tech, 14 Auburn. So I think when you combine looking at this team on defense, overall on tape, looking at the defense that other than Syracuse is one of the 2 best overall defenses probably in the country, along with Alabama, and throw Georgia in there, one of the 3. I think you can take a combination of that eye test and their resume with those 2 ranked wins, and it's reasonable to me to put Clemson at number 4, even though they've got that loss.
So as we look, this is the 4th time now we've had an initial first 4 ranking. 2014, 15, 16, and 14. Ohio State was 16th in the initial ranking, ends up in the top 4, wins the championship. Second year, Oklahoma was 15th in the initial ranking, ends up in the top 4. Mm-hmm. Is there a team go past 10, double digits, that has the best shot in your mind of being an Ohio State or an Oklahoma and jumping into the Final Four?
Yeah, I think we can just go to 11 at Oklahoma State. We talked about that loss to TCU. Those offensive linemen are back now. And they barely beat Texas, but their center and right guard were out. On my college tour, I drive around the country in the summer on my own time, my own expense, put in about 14,000 miles this last year. When I went by Stillwater to visit Oklahoma State, they talked about how much trust they had in their starting offensive line, but that they couldn't afford to lose anybody because they didn't have any depth behind them that they could rely on, to your point, Mike, because it's something that is important, that depth. Well, when they lose those 2 guys, they lost one game, they struggled. But when they're all together, I think they're as good as anybody in the country, top to bottom. Their defense isn't a stone-cold stopper, but they play really well with the lead because they're very good at getting behind the line and pressuring the quarterback. They play this weekend number 5 Oklahoma, then they have the Big 12 championship game. If Oklahoma State gets hot, they have the juice in terms of the schedule, in terms of teams that they can beat that are ranked, that they could get right back into this.
Mike and Mike, Trevor Matich is here, presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keystoprogress.com. I have a 2-part question, but I'll do them separately. Let's start with the first. If Notre Dame wins out, do you think they're safe? Which is to say, we've seen TCU be in the top 5 going into the top 4, I think they were number 3 going into the last weekend of the season, win a game and fall out. So do you believe Notre Dame, if they win out, are safe in the top 4?
No. I think they have a great case, but I don't think they're safe because they do not have that one box to check, which is the most important single box, or at least it should be, which is conference champion. And so you don't necessarily hold it against them, but you don't give it to them for extra credit. And the reason TCU dropped out was because of other teams that now were able to get that credit for conference championship. That's why the first year of the playoff, it was whiplash for fans because they're accustomed to the rankings where if you don't lose, you don't drop. But you could win and drop 3 or 4 spots at the end of the college football committee rankings because other teams now log a conference championship. You don't. Bam, they move right up ahead of you even though you won your last game. So Notre Dame is not safe. But I think Notre Dame has a very good case, and if they win out, I do believe they will be in.
Okay, so I know you've been high on them from the beginning of the season on this 14,000-mile journey that you put together this summer. I know you went there and you were very high on them. So that brings us to the second part of this, which is if Notre Dame gets in, and Alabama and Georgia play some sort of all-time great SEC championship game, and the loser is only 1 loss, maybe the 2 of them get in, we're looking at 3 power conferences being left out of this mix. Mm-hmm. How does that sell? You know the politics, the shrimp and croissant guys, better than I do. How does that play, and what conversations begin as a result of that?
You know, the conversations there among the committee are you better get that last one right. Because a lot of people are going to be very mad because under that scenario, 3 Power 5 champions, 3? Yeah, 3
yes.
Are not going to make it in. And so if just the Big 12 is out, I think, that's happened twice and the world did not end. But all of a sudden, if you get, for example, the ACC and the Big 10 and the Pac-12 out and say Oklahoma wins out and gets in, because if Oklahoma wins out and if Ohio State wins out, then they both have one loss. They're both conference champions, and Oklahoma has the head-to-head over Ohio State. Imagine Ohio State wins out and doesn't make the playoff. Right? There will be much wailing and gnashing of teeth.
How about an unbeaten Wisconsin? How about an unbeaten Wisconsin?
An unbeaten Wisconsin would only have one thing to hang their hat on, and that is whoever they beat in the Big Ten championship game. Most likely Ohio State.
And that they played a Big Ten schedule, albeit on the weaker side of the bracket, but that's not their fault. They didn't make that.
No.
And they did not play a great pre-conference schedule. I understand that part of it. But an unbeaten Big Ten champion to be left out.
Right, and that could very well happen because they will probably go through the regular season undefeated without having beaten a team that's ranked. Now, it's not necessarily their fault. The thing is, it goes to the question of good enough or deserve it. You could take Clemson, last year's national championship, champion, out of the ACC, drop them into the MAC last year. They still would have been the best team in the country, able to win the national championship, but would they have made the playoff?
No.
But it's not their fault, right? Wisconsin's in the same situation right now. They thought that scheduling BYU would be a good non-conference game. It turns out that BYU, rather than a solid bowl team with 9, maybe 10 wins, maybe 8 at the minimum, that turned out to be not what Wisconsin expected. So they don't get a positive result from beating BYU in terms of resume enhancement. And so it's not their fault. But here's something that is their fault. When you watch them on tape, solid on defense, solid running game, but their passing game doesn't have enough dynamic playmakers on the perimeter to threaten really good defenses, better defenses. So you'll be able to come up and jam up that running game if you're a better defense. Lesser defenses have been able to jam up Wisconsin's running game at times during games. And so Wisconsin on tape, I don't think has the same case that an Alabama has.
How about a Miami? That, to me, if Miami wins out, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Clemson in the ACC title game, or if those teams keep winning, they're in, right? To me, they are a lock to be in if they ran the table.
If they ran the table, they haven't beaten a team that's ranked now either.
Right, but
they have Virginia Tech coming up.
Exactly right.
Right?
And then Notre Dame,
and then they would have the ACC championship game probably against Clemson.
Right.
And so, yes, if Miami wins out, they would enhance their resume. The thing about Miami is that they have needed too many low percentage miracles at the ends of the game.
I agree. I don't think they're going to do it,
Yeah.
but we're doing all hypotheticals here.
Yeah.
If they were somehow able to do that, to me, I think they would be a lock-in for the way they finish up.
How awesome would it be?
Yeah?
You know what I love about Miami?
It wouldn't be awesome because they'd have to beat Notre Dame, which I wouldn't really love.
Well, okay, yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Miami's defense is playing not necessarily with all the talent, but with all the swagger and attitude of the Miami defenses of old, and they're fun to watch.
They are.
Trevor Matich is here. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Do you have anything else on the rankings? Because I have a few other questions for Trevor Matich. I just happened to notice as we were talking, and if I seem to be looking at my screen, it's because I find this interesting. I was just sent Todd McShay's updated top 32, his new board, the McShay McBoard of NFL draft prospects. And his number one prospect remains Sam Darnold. Now, it is my perspective from where I sit, and I don't pretend that I watch every one of his games. And I know that coming into the season, people were talking about him being a once-in-a-lifetime prospect, him having a grade that you would have to go back to Luck and Elway, better than all these really good guys we've seen recently. And my perspective, having watched what I've seen of him this year and listened to the conversation, is that it's been a very disappointing year. The decision-making continues to be a problem. They've obviously lost a bunch of games, and he's even talking about not coming out. But if he does come out, in your opinion, is he the number one pick in the draft?
Absolutely not. He'd be my number 4 quarterback at best. And I thought that at the beginning of the season. I like Sam Darnold. He's got to fix a few things, mostly mentally. But I think there are other quarterbacks that if I were drafting right now, I would draft ahead of him. My first quarterback that I would take right now is Mason Rudolph of Oklahoma State. He's the guy that best combines college necessities, run-pass options, etc., with NFL skills. Because you see him run college plays and put NFL throws into them. It's phenomenal to watch this guy on tape. Darnold has not responded to adversity in the way that an NFL quarterback needs to. In other words, he's pressed too much. And early in games when the score is not out of hand, but when his teammates around him aren't performing well, he's forced the ball into tight spots that are really risky and thrown interceptions. You do that at the end of games because you just have to make a play because the clock is running down. But he'll do that in the second quarter with the score tied at 10. And that contributes to now Notre Dame or USC falling behind. The other thing that worries me, so he's got to fix that. It's a mental thing, and that's correctable. The other thing that worries me is his big wind-up delivery. When he's feeling it, that ball will get out quickly and it'll go where it needs to go. But there's not a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that have been successful, that have had really, truly quirky deliveries. There have been some. Most of the time, yeah. Most of the time, it's a pretty standard delivery. So he's got to overcome history in order to be able to make that delivery work consistently in the NFL.
And I think, to your point, I'll get to, but I agree about Darnold. He has forced some things when there have been other decisions to make on the field that have shocked me. So
can I just confirm that then you said he's fourth? So Rosen and Allen are second and third?
I'd have Rosen. Allen. I'm torn between Allen and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a pro prospect. He's just that baller. He's not real tall. Everybody jumps on Drew Brees and to give hope to shorter quarterbacks. He's about 6 feet tall. But in talking to Lincoln Riley, his coach, on my tour, I asked him, what about Baker Mayfield do people not understand? What gets lost in the spectacular scrambling that he does? And he said, from the pocket, he is an incredibly accurate passer, especially on deep balls. Well, what do you need in the NFL physically? You need accuracy on deep balls from the pocket.
Yeah, I'm not sure about him at the next level, but I don't want to just discount him because of his size, because you do see a Drew Brees and stuff like that.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, but I mean, there are very few of them.
Talk about beating history. That's Mason Rudolph. Name me a Big 12 quarterback that has been successful in the NFL.
Right.
And I know Andy Reid just went up to get Mahomes, but we haven't seen what he could do yet. Because I agree with you. You just watch a guy fling the ball around. Mason Rudolph is incredible. But you see Big 12 quarterbacks fling the ball around to wide-open receivers an awful lot. He's got an arm that can make the throws. I agree with you. We've not seen it from a Big 12 guy into the NFL, but I do agree in kind of the shifting of that type of quarterback coming into the NFL and being able to perform. I agree about Darnold, makes bad decisions. I like Rosen. I do like Allen as well. Darnold, I wouldn't be stunned at all if he were to go back.
He has to go back.
I completely agree.
Yeah, he's a huge risk right now to be drafted, and I think he'd be third, fourth round.
The only time you wouldn't go back is if, everyone said that about Michael Vick. He wasn't ready to go, but you can't get higher than number one in the draft.
Right.
So you go.
Right.
But Darnold, in my opinion, if he said I'm coming out, is not going to be the number one pick in the draft. And if he is, that would mean everybody discounted what they saw on the field and just watched him throwing shorts and a T-shirt, and elevate him there, which always blows my mind.
And they saw some amazing throws in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. I mean, he made some throws that were otherworldly.
Yeah.
He saw angles that were open that nobody else thought were open. And when that ball left his hand, I was thinking, no. And then it found its way through defenders into the hands of a receiver for a touchdown. I'm like, oh, nice throw there, Sam. Here's the thing you got to worry about, though, if you come out too soon, when you're not ready. Because of the rookie salary cap, it's no longer that much of a risk to draft a guy and get rid of him.
Right.
So if you're not ready to make a statement early, you'll get labeled as that guy that really probably won't be able to do it. You need to come out as NFL ready as you possibly can, because you don't have that financial lever over a team that they have to keep you for a while because they can't afford to get rid of you soon.
I just scrolled quickly through McShay's top 32. He has three quarterbacks in his top 32. He has Darnold number 1. He has Josh Rosen number 5. He has Josh Allen number 6. He does not have Rudolph, nor does he have Baker Mayfield in his top 32 prospects. The other thing I want to ask you about, Trevor, while I have you here, is people in and around Washington know that you do the Skins games, the pre and the post and all that kind of thing. And I'm fascinated by the Kirk Cousins dynamic in all of this. And you're much closer to it than we are, so I wanted to get a take from you on all of that. We see, I think there had been a conventional wisdom that Cousins' ultimate destination was going to be San Francisco to play with Kyle Shanahan. That seems to have gone by the wayside now as they make the move for Garoppolo. So for everyone around the country who's sort of watching this thing with interest, what's going on with Cousins, and what is a reasonable expectation of where it winds up?
A reasonable expectation is either that he stays with the Redskins, because there are some reasons to stay there from a career standpoint. There's a lot of speculation that he doesn't like Bruce Allen, the team's president. And that doesn't matter, though. If you don't like that guy, have him put the contract down. You sign the contract, close the door, and say, "Now, don't talk to me for the next 5 years."
You don't have to see him ever again. That's exactly right.
And so whether that speculation is true or not, to me, is completely irrelevant. Stay at the Redskins. They've got a good, talented, young offensive line that's on the rise. They've got one of the best receiving tight ends in the league in Jordan Reed. They've got Chris Thompson at running back, one of the best third down running backs in the league. They've got to get that wide receiver situation put together, but he excels in Jay Gruden's system. He's got good protection when everybody's healthy. Why would you want to leave there and go to a team that is building from the ground up and run for your safety for the next 3 or 4 years before they can adequately protect you? That's thing number one. So I think there are reasons why it makes sense for him to stay. But if I'm Kirk Cousins, I don't want to go to a team that's struggling. I'd rather go to a team that's a quarterback away or nearly that. So Jacksonville has been mentioned. as a destination for him. Ben Roethlisberger at Pittsburgh is always speculating that he might retire this year. Well, at some point, he might just do it.
Yeah.
And imagine if he steps away and Cousins steps into that situation.
Yeah. How nice would that be?
How about Arizona? That's another team that is solid in a lot of ways that he could go to, instead of going to a place like Cleveland where, okay, you can go there and spend the best years of your career waiting and watching while they're trying to build up a team around you.
Oh, I'm with you on that, but there's a half a dozen teams that you just named, and there are others, Denver and other
How about
places.
Jacksonville?
But he mentioned Jacksonville,
yeah.
He said that one, but Denver and some of the others.
Denver, great call.
You know, there are a bunch of places out there that you could go and potentially win.
Right. But Kirk Cousins is worthy. He is worthy of being a franchise quarterback and being paid like it. And all you have to do is look at what happened last week. They had 3 and then eventually 4 starting offensive linemen out. And yet they were 2 special teams gaffes away from beating the Dallas Cowboys. And Cousins stood in the pocket, took the hits, even though he's on a 1-year franchise deal, time after time after time, and completed 67% of his passes with no protection from 3 offensive linemen that they signed off the street 2 days before the game.
I'm excited to see, because we don't see free agent quarterbacks, franchise guys hit the market. And this isn't the NBA where there's only one amount that he can get paid. I'm really excited to see the amount of teams that come after him and the offers that get on the table for him.
You know what's interesting, though, is what's going to happen to the salary cap. We're used to it going up and up and up every year. With NFL ratings and attendance and things like that, will it continue to do that? I don't know the answer to that question. But to me, if I'm Cousins, I want to get something locked in right now.
Well, we'll see. That's obviously there's only one place he could do that right now if he's going to do it, and this is an offseason where Drew Brees may become a free agent. There's going to be a lot of quarterback wheeling and dealing when we get there. Meantime, obviously, all the college football and much more. What a pleasure, Trevor. Good to see you again. Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it, guys. Thank you. I'm going to work on my planking so I can join you next time.
The 1-2, and Peterson lifts a high fly ball to left field. Did he get enough? Yes, he did. Opposite field home run. Jock Peterson's 3rd home run of the World Series. And it's 3-1 Dodgers.
The call last night on ESPN Radio as the Dodgers force a decisive Game 7 of the World Series tonight, and you'll hear all the action right here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Game coverage starts at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and you'll hear from Tim Kirkshin in just a moment looking ahead. The first edition of the College Football Playoff Rankings were out last night. Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson are the top 4 in that order. And the Browns trade for A.J. McCarron fails to go through as Cleveland fails to get the paperwork to the league in time. The NFL then denied the trade. It's a puzzling story. The Bengals, it's not as though the deal got done so late that they just in general couldn't get it in, because the Bengals got the paperwork in time and the Browns did not.
It seems like the story is the Browns are saying what they sent to the Bengals, they thought when they went into the league that took care of everything, but they had to send something. I don't know the truth to this. I don't, but it's an embarrassing thing. No doubt about it.
This just doesn't seem like it should be that complicated. Mike and Mike, our Sports Center, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
Other wireless providers say they're going to cut your bill in half, but who knows what kind of coverage you're going to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks, and their no-contract unlimited plan is only $45 a month.
You know, I'm trying to remember the exact circumstances of this, and so I just Googled the words Blackhawks, fax machine, Keenan. And I will find the details. When I was covering sports in Chicago, I covered very little hockey.
Right.
But I did cover some. And I can't remember the exact circumstances of it. But at one point while I was there, the Blackhawks, and their coach at the time was Mike Keenan, had a trade worked out of some kind, and there was a fax machine fiasco. Like they had to fax it in those days through the league office, and the explanation was that the fax machine didn't work properly or something like that, and the trade got vetoed.
Right.
I'm trying to remember the exact circumstances of it. Maybe if someone can find this, whatever it was, they were enraged, and it was extremely. And here there was a fax mishap that cost the Broncos Elvis Dumervil a couple of years ago. That's much more recent, of course, than the example that I'm bringing up. So we've seen that before. But this one doesn't seem to have involved a fax machine, or at least to our knowledge.
It doesn't.
Are they still faxing things?
No, I don't. Well, then again, I don't know. I have the tiny scan, and you just email.
Yes, I'm saying. I mean, are they not scanning this stuff?
I don't know, and I don't know the story. The first report out was that Cleveland was celebrating to the point that somebody forgot to call in or fax in or do whatever they were supposed to do, which would bring up the thought process. Are you celebrating that much? Or you just traded for a backup quarterback? And then the reports are, it wasn't that the visual of them high-fiving and then going, oh, my God, nobody called, I do think is a bit ridiculous. Let's not go that far. But unfortunately, Cleveland has a pretty bad history, so a lot of people think, oh, that could happen to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened. Obviously, something happened to where they thought it was in. They thought somebody did it. They thought the Cincinnati was going in with them. I don't know, but it didn't get done. To me, what's even worse, I'll be honest with you, was when Minnesota missed their draft pick.
Yep.
I mean, you have your war room in Minnesota, you have the people sitting at the desk, and you have a clock that's everywhere that counts down your pick. And they didn't turn in a pick in the allotted time. That to me is one of the biggest gaffes of all time. This one, who knows what the absolute truth of the matter is, but man, but is there reverberation? Is this, we're done with DeShone Kizer? Is this, we've given up on DeShone Kizer?
Certainly feels that way.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
If you were giving up a 2 and a 3 for McCarron, then you were deciding he was your quarterback of the future.
I think so as well. So they didn't get McCarron. So is DeShone Kizer now playing the rest of this year saying, well, I'm not going to be here? You know,
he's going to be there. He's got a contract.
You know what I mean? Not going to be here. But they're going to would they try and move him? Then, if not, or he's going to be competing.
What would you move him for?
I have no idea.
He'll just be. He could be the backup.
He absolutely could be.
He's a second-year contract guy.
Yeah.
So you're getting him at comparatively little money. I mean, they have all these young. Look, they're a disaster.
They are. They have all young
Browns
quarterbacks.
Are a disaster.
The money isn't the issue. You're right. So they just continue to have a bunch of young quarterbacks on their roster.
Okay. Having said all of that, you know what? I'll get to the World Series in a minute. Then we'll finish it up today with Timmy Kirkchin and look ahead to Game 7. Let's stay on this relative topic while we're at it. You just heard. And Trevor Matich, I really like Trevor. He's a very good, insightful analyst, and he's got a contrary opinion. I haven't heard people putting Baker Mayfield ahead of Josh Allen. I haven't heard anyone put Baker Mayfield ahead of Sam Darnold. I haven't heard a whole lot of support for Mason Rudolph as the number 1 quarterback coming into this draft, and all the other opinions he just gave. So, Mike, what's yours? You've seen these guys. I don't know how much you've gotten a chance to see Josh Allen at Wyoming, obviously.
I do. I like the way he throws. Big, strong kid.
There were some people who say that he's the best. That of all of them, he's the best.
You know what? And we just saw not the big school of Carson Wentz. You know what he was able to do. And Carson Wentz came really a lot from a running offense. In his last year there, he had a wrist injury where he missed a lot of the games. The highest quarterback rating in college right now is Mason Rudolph. 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 66% completion. If you're asking me which quarterback whips that ball around the way I see it whipped around, Mason Rudolph does that. But there's just something in the back of my head that said, what's the reason that no Big 12 quarterbacks has succeeded? Because you see a lot of bad defenses. You see a lot of wide-open receivers, okay?
Right.
But you see a guy that every now and then you go, I mean, Andy Reid, listen, I think he's a fantastic coach. And for him to move up to where he did, to take Mahomes, and to think that Mahomes could be an excellent NFL quarterback, that says something to me, but there's still that pause that says nobody's done it yet from the Big 12 that really took hold of the NFL. Now, are we changing to where because we talk about Andy Reid using some of the college plays, that you see, will we see more of that will help a guy like a Big 12 quarterback be able to assimilate quicker to the NFL? Darnold, we were going off all last year. He comes into the starting lineup. They were the team nobody wanted to play. He definitely has some issues. And when issues, I mean football, X's and O's, of where he's reading, who he's staring down, where he's throwing the ball, what his other options are, that say, you know what? I can't look at that and say, you know what, we'll just fix that. He's a number 1 pick of the draft. I love the way Rosen throws the ball. Rosen is that guy, too. He's going to throw it across his body. He's going to give it a shot there that you want to try and work out of a guy. And Allen may have the strongest arm. When you look at them, I probably look at a guy like Mason Rudolph. But do you pull do you roll the dice on that one? And say, man, there's just like we talk about Tom Brady. We've never seen a quarterback 42, 43, 44. He wants to do it, and he's playing at the top of his game. We haven't seen that Big 12 quarterback just shine in the NFL. Can he be that guy that does it? But as far as Sam Darnold, I've seen enough of him to think, man, you got another year in college. Take it, unless you're going to be, like I said, maybe 1, 2, or 3,
which I think he is.
When you're right, I don't know if he is anymore. Greeny, I don't know if he is anymore. If he still is, I'd like to talk to some of those scouts that are watching him, that then it would just be, we like him so much we're going to overlook everything we see out of him because we're not seeing some great things right now and think we can work him through this.
But
because
the things
remember,
that you're worried about, aren't they things you could theoretically coach out of him if he's throwing the ball into tight windows when he shouldn't early
theoretically,
in games?
you can, but you're looking for a quarterback that, man, from Sam Darnold's case, again, if you're going to be a top 3, maybe you say, I'm just coming out. As I said with Michael Vick, nobody thought he was ready for the NFL, but you ain't going higher than 1, so you come out. I don't know if now with this quarterback, with Allen, with Rosen, with Rudolph, if Baker Mayfield I love watching Baker Mayfield play the game, but he's a guy I wonder if his college game is going to be better than his pro game. I don't know that.
He's another Big 12 guy.
Of them.
He's a guy that people, because of his size, will compare to Johnny Manziel because of his stature and the way he runs around back there. When I see them play, and look, Trevor just said that he has talked to the coaching staff, and the coaching staff says he's great with accuracy from the pocket. Fair enough. I feel like when we see Oklahoma, most of the plays that really make your jaw drop are broken plays that he's running around back there and making a play.
Plays. You go look at like a guy because you got to be, as I've always said, be careful of stats. Look at RG3. I think RG3's number is last year at Baylor from the pocket. The completion percentage was ungodly high. Was fantastic. But sometimes there's a reason in the Big 12 when you're playing against some of those defenses. So you can get fooled by that at times. So that's what gives me pause for the Big 12.
Is there a name that we're leaving out of this conversation? Should the name Lamar Jackson be in this conversation anywhere? He won the Heisman a year ago.
Boy, he did.
Mel's list of quarterbacks. Mel right now goes Rosen 1, Darnold 2, Josh Allen 3, Lamar Jackson 4, Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State 5. He has Baker Mayfield at 7, and I will throw in just because it excited me to see it. He has Northwestern's Clayton Thorson at 10. Thorson has another year of college, and I'm almost sure he will come back and play it, and he would then be a 4-year starter.
You see Luke Falk there from Washington State, who all of a sudden, and they were winning and up there, and then he has a 5-interception game. The worry of Lamar Jackson is I think he's throwing a lot better. I think he took what he needed to do for the next level and throw better from the pocket. I think he has definitely improved there. But he is a guy that you look at, he is so – and I don't blame Louisville. They want him to run the ball, right? They want him to take off more than – I don't think – I'm trying to think of a quarterback more running. Do you go back to Vic? What other guy where they said, we really want you to be running the ball? Man, that's hard to just grow out of. You can throw better from the pocket, but as I said, if the littlest thing starts to break down, man, you're relying on your legs because that's what you relied on so much in college. So maybe in time, as he gets a little more comfortable in the NFL, that he could turn into that and not just take off all the time. He could be dangerous, but let me tell you, he's going to get splattered. He won't run nearly as much as he does in college, but he's not a very big guy either. So that's my worry as well.
All right, we are Mike and Mike. They have these little claymation clips they run for us on TV. And people listening on the radio don't get to hear them, but they just relived one where I was talking about the golf gods smiting you or smoting you.
Yes.
And Michael Collins, our friend at ESPN The Caddy, tweeted in that he agrees with you on your strategy for playing blackjack, which is to say that if no card comes out, you're going to take a card regardless when you're sitting in that anchor chair, even if it's a circumstance where you otherwise might not.
You mean on 12 and a 2?
12 versus a 2.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. We were talking a lot about blackjack, how I hit on 16 every time if the dealer has 7 or up, no matter what. I stay consistent with that. If the dealer's showing a deuce, which I hate and usually lose, and I have a 12, I look at the other hands and I want to make sure there's at least one card that's pulled out. And if I like to be in the anchor, if nobody has pulled a card out, I'll take a hit. If a card has come out, I'll probably stay.
But just to be clear, and I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But just to be clear, that is no different than
right.
all of the stuff I've been telling you about.
Yeah.
Like sitting in the same spot on the couch while watching a game and thinking it has an impact.
That's just my thought process. I mean,
what thought process?
It's the same as 16.
No, it's not the same.
Sure it is.
Whether you take a card or not has zero impact on what the card that comes out next is going to be. Zero. There's no way of knowing what card is coming out first and no way of knowing what card is coming out second.
I want a card pulled out.
Totally random.
I hate when everybody stays and the dealer.
I hate when people get up and go to the bathroom when things are going well while my game is happening. They have the same impact on the outcome. Same.
You what?
I always say if you're at my house and we're watching, let's say, Northwestern play, we're playing against Michigan State this past weekend, and things are going well. Everyone has to stay in the spot. You're not allowed to move. You're not allowed to get up. You're not allowed to go get something to drink. You're not allowed to move
over to your house.
Fair enough. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that has just as much impact on the outcome of the game as you taking a card or not taking a card.
I agree.
In that circumstance.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree with you.
We agree with that.
Oh, it's a completely different scenario of hitting on 16 every time. I completely agree.
No, hitting on 16 every time is totally different from this. What I'm talking
That's
about,
what I'm saying.
You're insisting that a card come out on 12 versus a 2.
That's just me. That's just me. I'm
so happy.
Yes, I want a card out.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't want you to move if everything is going well in my football game.
What if I need a beer?
You're going to have to wait.
No, well, I will never, ever be at your house.
All right, fair enough.
Watching a game.
I would like you to come to my house and watch a game. We actually have fun. You would enjoy.
Not if I can't move.
No, that's not like you can
never
move the whole day.
You want it? You got it. I'm peeing on your couch.
No, you're not peeing on. What are you, Poppy now? All of a sudden, you're not peeing on the couch.
I can't move. I got to go to the bathroom. Greeny, I got to go to the bathroom. Jets are playing well. I got to go.
You're gonna have to wait a minute.
Sit there.
No.
You know what you're going to see me sit there with? A slow smile come across my face, and your couch turn yellow.
No,
that's what you're going to see. You're going to be happy with that?
No, I'm certainly not going to be happy with that.
I would.
Not only will I have to
because that spot will be marked at what? I'll move to another spot on the couch.
So I think at that point it goes beyond having to get a new couch and begins becoming having to get a new house.
Sure.
I think that's pretty much where we are. If you peed on my couch in my house, I don't think this is just a couch problem.
And I would pee on your couch in your house if you said I couldn't move.
I think if you do it a second time, it becomes a house problem. All right, let's hear from Timmy Kirkchin. Again, we're looking forward to tonight's Game 7, and we have no way of knowing what's going to happen because, as Tim points out, as only he can, this series has been wildly unpredictable.
Just when you think you understand that this is going to happen, the opposite happens. It happened in Game 2. Then it happened in Game 5 with Clayton Kershaw. He was supposed to win that game, and then it was supposed to happen tonight with Justin Verlander as he just sailed through those first 5 innings. And then they scored 2 runs in the 6th inning, the Dodgers did, with the 8, 9, and 1 hitters. And let's understand the 8 hitter was Austin Barnes, who wasn't even an everyday player, basically, until the postseason. The 9th hitter was Chase Utley, who's 0 for his last 29 in the postseason. And then the leadoff guy was Chris Taylor, who was basically a utility guy until this season when he became a really good player and then hit a ball to right field to get this thing tied, and Corey Seager gave him the lead. That's why this series has been so fabulous to this point, because just when you think you understand what's happening, you realize that you don't understand.
How much do you love that?
It's
man?
Fantastic.
I'm working very hard on that imitation,
and I can't wait for this game to see what happens. As Buster Olney came on and said that if Yu Darvish has trouble, it'll be Alex Wood coming out probably first out of the bullpen, and it would be Clayton Kershaw getting that last out, coming in at the end of the game, and obviously the normal bullpen rotation at some point in the middle there. A lot's going to depend on Yu Darvish, I would imagine, in all this, and obviously the game, the score.
Who do you expect to win?
I mean, it's hard for me to think that the Houston bats can be silent again like they were last night and getting just one run in what now has turned into kind of a hitting league. Springer going to hit another one out. He seems to continually do that. I think the Houston bats will get it done tonight.
So do I. I picked Astros in 6. I thought they'd win it last night with Verlander on the mound, and the way that game started, it certainly looked like he was going to do it. But I will stay with my pick. I will go with the Astros. And before we run, I do have a little bit of news for you here. This is not a surprise. This is just across from Field Yates. Mm-hmm. Free agent quarterback Brian Hoyer is visiting the Patriots this morning, per league source. The expectation is that he will be signing with the team.
I wonder, in visiting, I love visiting. I bet he brought all his gear.
Meaning his clothes and his
shoulder pads,
books,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
You don't think they have shoulder pads for him?
Oh, you may have shoulder pads that you like. I took my shoulder pads.
Did you?
Me. Oh, yeah.
When you went from one team to another, you brought your own shoulder pads?
Yes, they were comfortable on me.
I always assumed they just gave you shoulder pads.
If you don't have shoulder pads, they will, of course, give you shoulder pads, but I liked the shoulder pads.
Did you bring other pads?
No.
Knee pads?
No.
Thigh pads?
No, those are all the same. Shoulder pads, the way they fit you, I still have my shoulder pads.
If I just showed up in Foxborough today with a pair of shoulder pads, do you think I'd get a workout?
There are times that I see why they're ending the show.
Me too. Okay. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you back in Better Than Ever tomorrow to talk about it. Mike and Mike.